Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled, My Parents Tried to Force Me into Their Religion. Hey everyone, I'm Amira, and I want to share my story of how my parents tried to force me into their religion and how I managed to stay true to myself despite immense pressure. I grew up in a small Midwestern town, the only child of deeply religious Christian parents. My mom and dad were pillars of the local evangelical church community. Our lives revolved around church activities, Sunday services, Bible study, youth group, mission trips. You name it, we did it. From a young age, I was taught that our faith was the one true path to salvation. My parents truly believed they were doing what was best for me by immersing me in Christianity. And for many years, I went along with it without question. It was all I knew. But as I entered my teenage years, I started to have doubts. The more I learned about science and other cultures in school, the more questions I had about the religious teachings I'd grown up with. I began to feel uncomfortable with some of the church's stances on social issues, and I found myself drawn to learning about other faiths and philosophies. At first, I kept these doubts to myself. I was scared of disappointing my parents or being ostracized by our church community, but inwardly I was going through an intense spiritual journey, trying to figure out what I truly believed. Everything changed during my junior year of high school. I had become close friends with Layla, a Muslim girl in my class. We bonded over our shared love of art and literature. Layla was the first person I felt comfortable opening up to about my religious questioning. She listened without judgment and shared her own spiritual perspectives. The more I learned about Islam from Layla, the more intrigued I became. The emphasis on peace, charity, and personal accountability resonated with me. I started reading the Quran in secret and watching videos about Islamic teachings online. Over time, I came to believe that Islam was the right spiritual path for me. The religion brought me a sense of peace and purpose I'd never experienced before, but I knew my parents would be devastated if I told them. So for months, I practiced Islam in secret, praying in my room, fasting during Ramadan, and wearing a hijab only when I was out with Layla. Looking back, I realized it was naive to think I could keep such a big part of my life hidden forever. The truth came out in a way I never expected. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was in my room reading the Quran. I thought my parents were out running errands. Suddenly, my bedroom door flew open. My mom stood there holding a basket of laundry, her eyes wide with shock as she took in the scene. Me in a hijab, Islamic prayer rug on the floor, Quran in my hands. For a moment, we just stared at each other in stunned silence. Then my mom's face crumpled and she burst into tears. "Oh, Amira, what have you done?" she wailed. My heart was pounding as I tried to explain. "Mom, please don't be upset. I found a faith that brings me peace. If you'll just let me explain, I'm sure you'll understand." But she wasn't listening. She turned and ran out the room, still sobbing. I heard her calling for my dad. I sat frozen, my mind racing. This was not how I wanted them to find out. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. Minutes later, both my parents burst into my room. My dad's face was red with anger. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "Have you turned your back on Jesus, on everything we've taught you?" I tried to stay calm as I explained my spiritual journey over the past year, how I'd been questioning my faith for a while, how learning about Islam had brought me clarity and purpose. I told them this wasn't a phase or act of rebellion, but a genuine change in my beliefs. My parents didn't take it well, to put it mildly. There was a lot of yelling and crying. They accused me of betraying our family and throwing away my salvation. My dad even suggested I must be under some kind of demonic influence. "We won't allow this," my mom declared. "You are still a child under our roof. We will get you the help you need to come back to Jesus." And so began months of intense pressure to reconvert to Christianity. My parents took away my phone and laptop, cutting me off from Layla and other supportive friends. They forbade me from leaving the house except for school and church. Every night, they insisted on having long prayer sessions to bring me back to Christ. They invited our pastor over for counseling sessions, where he lectured me about the errors of Islam. My dad even booked a weekend at a Christian youth retreat, hoping it would reignite my faith. But the more they pushed, the more certain I became in my choice. Islam felt right to me in a way Christianity never had. Still, it broke my heart to see how much pain I was causing my parents. I loved them deeply, even if we now had this fundamental disagreement. Things came to a head about 2 months after my parents discovered my conversion. It was a Sunday morning, and they were insisting I come to church as usual. I had been going along with it to keep the peace, but that day something in me snapped. "I'm not going," I said firmly. "I respect your faith, but I don't share it anymore. Forcing me to practice Christianity goes against my beliefs as a Muslim." My dad's face turned purple with rage. "As long as you live under my roof, you'll follow my rules," he shouted. "If you want to be Muslim so badly, maybe you should go live in the Middle East." I flinched at his words, but held my ground. "Dad, I'm still the same person. My faith doesn't change who I am or how much I love you and Mom, but I need you to respect my choice." "Choice?" my mom cried. "You're only 17. You're too young to make a decision like this. We're your parents. We know what's best for you." "I'm old enough to think for myself," I insisted. "I've spent months studying both faiths. This isn't a whim. It's what I truly believe." The argument escalated from there. Horrible things were said on both sides that I regret to this day. It ended with my dad delivering an ultimatum. "Either you start living as a Christian again, or you can get out of this house." I was shocked. "You'd kick out your own daughter over this? You're the one choosing to leave the faith," he shot back. "Actions have consequences." I looked to my mom, hoping she'd intervene, but she just stood there crying silently. My mind was reeling. I knew my parents were upset, but I never imagined they'd go this far. For a moment, I was tempted to give in, to say I'd reconvert just to keep the peace, but I knew I couldn't live a lie. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said, my voice shaking. "I love you both, but I won't pretend to believe something I don't. I'll pack my things." I half expected them to stop me as I went to my room and started throwing clothes into a duffel bag, but they just watched in stony silence. As I headed for the front door, bag in hand, my mom finally spoke up. "Amira, please," she begged. "Don't throw your life away like this. We can work through this together." I turned back, tears in my eyes. "I'm not throwing my life away, Mom. I'm choosing to live authentically. I hope someday you can understand that." And with that, I walked out. I had no idea where I was going or what I'd do next, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I ended up going to Layla's house. Her parents were shocked when I showed up on their doorstep in tears, but they welcomed me with open arms once I explained the situation. They let me stay in their guest room while I figured out my next steps. The next few weeks were a blur. I was devastated about the rift with my parents, but also felt a sense of freedom in being able to practice my faith openly. Layla and her family were incredibly supportive, helping me navigate this major life transition. My parents made a few attempts to contact me in those early days. The messages ranged from angry ultimatums to tearful pleas for me to come home, but they all carried the same underlying message, that I needed to renounce Islam and return to Christianity. I wasn't ready to face them on those terms, so I kept my distance. As my 18th birthday approached, I had to make some hard decisions about my future. I had planned to attend a local community college while living at home, but now I need to figure out how to support myself and continue my education independently. I got a part-time job at a local bookstore and applied for every scholarship I could find. Layla's parents generously offered to let me continue staying with them until I graduated high school. I'll be forever grateful for how they took me in during that difficult time. My birthday was bittersweet. It was strange not celebrating with my parents for the first time. But Layla's family went out of their way to make it special. With a halal cake and thoughtful gifts, I was touched by their kindness. A few days after I turned 18, I got an unexpected call from my mom. Her voice was hesitant as she asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, both nervous and hopeful about what she might say. When I arrived at the cafe, I was surprised to see both my parents there. They looked tired and sad. For a moment, we just stared at each other awkwardly. My mom broke the silence. Amira, we've done a lot of thinking and praying since you left, she began. We don't agree with your choice, but you're our only daughter and we love you. We want you to come home. I felt a lump in my throat. I love you too, but I need to know, will you accept that I'm Muslim now? Because I can't pretend to be something I'm not. My dad sighed heavily. We're trying to understand, even if we don't agree. If you come home, we won't force you to go to church or practice Christianity, but we ask that you respect our faith too. Of course, I said, I never wanted to disrespect your beliefs. I just need the freedom to follow my own path. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. I moved back home a few days later. There was still tension and awkwardness as we all adjusted to the new dynamic. But slowly we began to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. My parents kept their word about not forcing Christianity on me. They even made an effort to accommodate my religious practices, like making sure we had halal food options at family meals. In return, I joined them for Christmas and Easter celebrations as a family tradition, even if I no longer observed the religious aspects. There were still difficult moments. I overheard my mom crying to a friend on the phone once about how she felt she had lost her daughter to another religion. My dad would sometimes make offhand comments about hoping I'd see the light and come back to Jesus someday. But overall, things improved with time. We learned how to discuss religion without it turning into an argument. My parents started asking respectful questions about Islam, genuinely trying to understand my perspective. I shared books and resources with them about my faith. One of the biggest breakthroughs came about a year after I moved back home. My mom hesitantly asked if she could accompany me to the mosque one day to observe and learn more about how I practice. I was touched by her willingness to step out of her comfort zone. The day of the mosque visit, I could tell my mom was nervous, but the community welcomed her warmly. Afterwards, she told me she was struck by the sense of peace and devotion she witnessed. While she still didn't agree with Islamic theology, she said she could see why it brought me comfort. As my college graduation approached 2 years later, I reflected on how far we'd come as a family. My parents had moved from rejection of my faith to reluctant tolerance to genuine, if sometimes uneasy, acceptance. They had even developed a friendship with Layla's parents, bonding over shared experiences of raising headstrong daughters. The day of my graduation ceremony was a powerful moment of healing for our family. As I walked across the stage to get my diploma, I spotted my parents in the audience, beaming with pride. My mom was even wearing a headscarf in a show of solidarity. After the ceremony, my dad hugged me tight and said, I'm so proud of you, Amira. You've grown into a strong, principled young woman. Your mom and I may not share your spiritual path, but we respect the conviction with which you follow it. I felt tears welling up. Thank you, Dad. That means everything to me. My mom added, we've all been on a journey these past few years. It hasn't been easy, but I believe it's made our family bond even stronger. She was right. The path to interfaith acceptance in our family had been bumpy, but we had emerged with a deeper understanding of each other. We had learned that love and respect could bridge even the widest religious divides. As we headed off to my graduation dinner, my parents, Layla and her family, all together, I felt immensely grateful. My faith journey had been difficult at times, but it led me to a place of authenticity and self-discovery. And in the end, it hadn't cost me my family's love, but deepened it in unexpected ways. I know our story of religious conflict and reconciliation isn't unique. Many families struggle to navigate differences in faith and values. I hope that by sharing my experience, it might offer hope to others in similar situations. With patience, open communications, and a willingness to see beyond our differences, it is possible to find common ground. My relationship with my parents continued to evolve. There are still occasional moments of tension or misunderstanding around religious issues, but we've learned to approach those moments with compassion and respect rather than anger or judgment. I'm now working as a social worker, specializing in youth counseling. My personal experiences have given me unique insight in helping young people navigate family conflicts and questions of identity. I'm passionate about promoting interfaith dialogue and understanding in my community. My parents have become unexpected allies in this work. They've spoken to their church group about the importance of loving and accepting family members even when they choose a different faith path. It's been powerful to see how our journey has rippled out to impact others. Layla remains my closest friend. She stood by me during the hardest parts of my faith transition and family conflict. We often joke that she's the sister I never had. Our families have become incredibly close, celebrating holidays and milestones together. As I look to the future, I feel a sense of excitement and purpose. My faith continues to be a source of strength and guidance in my life. I'm grateful for the freedom to practice it openly, and I'm thankful for parents who, despite their initial resistance, found a way to accept and support me. To anyone out there struggling with family conflict over religion or other deeply held beliefs, I want to offer a message of hope. It may be a difficult road, but it is possible to stay true to yourself while maintaining family bonds. With patience, honest communication, and a willingness to see the humanity in each other beyond our differences, healing and understanding are possible. Our differences in faith haven't disappeared. My parents still hope that someday I'll return to Christianity. I still sometimes feel hurt by their difficulty fully embracing my choice, but we've learned to focus on the values we share: love, compassion, service to others, rather than the theological details that divide us. In the end, I believe our journey has made us all more empathetic, open-minded people. We've had to really examine why we believe what we believe. We've learned to respect that others may find meaning and truth through different spiritual paths. And we've discovered that family bonds can be flexible and resilient enough to encompass those differences. I'm sharing this story not to criticize my parents or pat myself on the back, but to offer perspective to others navigating similar family conflicts. Whether it's religion, politics, or other core values, many families struggle when members take divergent paths. If you're in that situation, I encourage you to lead with love and patience. Be firm in your convictions, but gentle in how you express them. Look for common ground and shared values. Give family members time and space to process big changes. And remember that in most cases, your loved ones are acting out of concern for you, even if it's misguided. To parents, I'd say trust that you've raised your children with a strong foundation. Have faith in their ability to think critically and find their own path. Your kids need your love and support more than they need you to agree with every choice they make. It's rarely easy when family members have clashing worldviews, but in working through those conflicts with compassion and respect, we have the opportunity to forge even stronger bonds. Our differences need not divide us if we remember the love that unites us. As I finish writing this, I'm preparing to head to my parents' house for our weekly family dinner. My mom texted to let me know she's making my favorite Pakistani dish that Layla's mom taught her. My dad mentioned he picked up some books on Islamic art from the library and wants to discuss them with me. These small gestures of learning and inclusion mean the world to me. They're reminders of how far we've come and the power of love to transcend our differences. Whatever challenges we may face in the future, I know we'll face them together as a family, different in our beliefs but united in our commitment to each other. Here are my thoughts about the story. To start things off, can we talk about the guts it took for Amira to stand her ground? I mean, we're talking about a teenager going up against not just her parents, but an entire community's worth of expectations. That's no small feat, folks. I remember being 17, and let me tell you, I could barely decide what to have for lunch, let alone make a life-altering decision about my faith. What really got me was how Amira's parents reacted. I'll be honest, when they first found out, I was sitting there thinking, oh boy, this is gonna get ugly. And it did for a while, but you know what? The way they eventually came around, that's the real heart of this story, if you ask me. It's easy to villainize the parents in these situations, but let's put ourselves in their shoes for a sec. They genuinely believed they were doing what was best for their kid. Were they right? Nah. Were they handling it well? Heck no, but their intentions came from a place of love, even if it was misguided. I gotta give props to Layla and her family too. Talk about being there when it counts. They didn't just offer Amira a place to crash, they gave her a safe space to be herself during probably the toughest time of her life. We should all be lucky enough to have friends like that. It really goes to show how important the people you surround yourself with can be. Now, let's chat about that turning point when Amira's mom asked to visit the mosque. That part, it hit me right in the feels. It's one thing to say you're trying to understand someone. It's a whole other ballgame to step into their world and experience it firsthand. Major respect to Mama Bear for taking that step. You know what's stuck with me though? The graduation scene when Amira's dad hugged her and said he was proud of her. Man, I'm not gonna lie, I got a little misty-eyed there. It just goes to show that love really can bridge even the widest gaps if we're willing to put in the work. But here's the thing that I think we can all take away from this story. Growth isn't just for the young folks. Amira's parents had to do some serious growing up too. They had to learn that loving your kid doesn't mean controlling them. It means supporting them, even when their path looks different from what you imagined. I've seen a lot of stories about family conflicts over religion. Politics, you name it, but what sets this one apart is how it doesn't end with a neat little bow. Amira doesn't magically convert her parents to Islam, and they don't suddenly become champions of religious diversity. It's messy, it's ongoing, but it's real. And that's life, isn't it? It's not about eliminating our differences, it's about finding a way to love each other through them. It's about those small gestures, like Amira's mom learning to cook Pakistani food, or her dad picking up books on Islamic art. As corny as it is, you've got to acknowledge the fact that's where the real magic happens. And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this. My husband's secret gambling addiction almost ruined us. It all started about 2 years ago. Robert and I were living what I thought was a comfortable life in suburban Chicago. We both had steady jobs. I worked as a high school English teacher, and Robert was a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company. We had a nice house, 2 cars, and were even thinking about starting a family. Life seemed pretty good. The first sign that something off came when I noticed Robert staying up later than usual. He had always been a bit of a night owl, but now he was regularly up until 2 or 3 in the morning, hunched over his laptop in the spare room. When I asked him about it, he would smile and say he was working on a side project. You know how it is, honey, he would say. Gotta keep up with the latest tech if I want to stay competitive in this field. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Robert had always been ambitious, and I admired his drive to keep improving himself, so I did not push it, even though a tiny voice in the back of my mind whispered that something was not right. A few months passed, and I started noticing other small changes. Robert seemed more distracted than usual, often checking his phone during dinner or while we were watching TV. He was also a bit more irritable, snapping at me over little things that had never bothered him before. One night, I woke up around midnight and realized Robert was not in bed. I found him in the spare room again, staring intently at his laptop screen. The blue light illuminated his face, and I saw an expression I had never seen before, a mix of intense focus and, was that desperation? "Mike?" I said softly, not wanting to startle him. He jumped anyway, slamming the laptop shut. "Jesus, Jessica, you scared me." "Sorry," I said, frowning. "What are you doing up so late?" "Just working on that project." Lost track of time. He rubbed his eyes and yawned. "I'll be to bed soon, okay?" I nodded and went back to our room, but sleep did not come easily. Something about Robert's reaction bothered me. It was the first time I could remember him not being completely open with me. The next big red flag came about a month later. I was balancing our joint checking account, something I did regularly as I have always been the more financially minded of the two of us. As I scrolled through the transactions, my heart dropped. There were several large withdrawals I could not account for, each for several $100s. When Robert got home that evening, I was waiting for him in the kitchen, my laptop open on the table. "Hey, Mike," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Can you explain these withdrawals?" He glanced at the screen and shrugged. "Oh, those? Just some work expenses. I forgot to submit the reimbursement forms. I'll take care of it this week." It sounded plausible, but something in his tone did not sit right with me. Still, I wanted to trust him, so I let it go. "Okay, just make sure you do. That's a lot of money." He nodded and quickly changed the subject, asking about my day. I played along, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few months, those seeds grew. More unexplained withdrawals appeared on our account. Robert's mood swings became more pronounced. He would be elated one day, talking about big plans for our future, and then sullen and withdrawn the next. He started coming home later from work, always with a different excuse. I tried talking to him several times, but he always brushed off my concerns. "You're overthinking things, Jessica," he would say. "Everything's fine. Work's just been stressful lately." But I knew it was not fine. I could feel us drifting apart, and I was scared. What was happening to my husband, to our marriage? One evening, I decided to confront him more directly. I waited until after dinner when we were both relaxed on the couch. "Mike," I started, "I feel like there's something you're not telling me. You have been acting differently lately, and I'm worried. Is everything okay?" He tensed up immediately. "I told you, Jessica, everything's fine. Why do you keep pushing this?" "Because I care about you," I insisted, "and I can see that something's bothering you. Whatever it is, we can face it together." For a moment, I thought he might open. His face softened, and he looked like he was about to speak. But then his phone buzzed, and he quickly checked it, his expression changing. "I'm sorry, I've got to take care of something for work," he said, standing up. "Can we talk about this later?" Before I could respond, he was gone, disappearing into the spare room. I sat there, feeling more alone than ever. The breaking point came on Friday evening in March. I had had a particularly rough day at school. One of my students had a meltdown in class, and I had had to deal with an angry parent afterward. All I wanted was to come home, have a glass of wine, and relax with Robert. Instead, I walked into an empty house. Robert was not home, and he was not answering his phone. I tried not to panic, telling myself he was just working late again. But as the hours ticked by and night fell, my worry turned to fear. It was past midnight when I heard the front door open. I rushed downstairs to find Robert stumbling in, reeking of alcohol. "Where have you been?" I demanded, relief and anger warring inside me. "I've been word sick." Robert looked at me with bloodshot eyes. "I'm sorry," he slurred. "I messed up, Jessica. I messed up badly." My heart pounded. "What do you mean? What happened?" He collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I lost it all," he mumbled. "Everything. Our savings, my paycheck. It's all gone." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "What are you talking about? How could it be gone?" And then finally the truth came out. Through tears and half-coherent explanations, Robert confessed everything. He had been gambling online for months, starting with small bets on sports games and poker, but quickly escalating to high-stakes games. He had blown through our savings, maxed out our credit cards, and even taken out loans I knew nothing about. I kept thinking I could win it all back, he said, his voice hollow. Just one more game, one more bet, but it just kept getting worse. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what I was hearing. How had I not seen this? How had my husband, the man I thought I knew better than anyone, hidden such a massive secret from me? How much? I finally managed to ask. How much did you lose? Robert looked at me, his face a mask of shame and despair. Almost $200,000? The number hit me like a physical blow. I felt dizzy and nauseous. That was more than our combined annual salary. How were we going to recover from this? I'm so sorry, Jessica, Robert sobbed. I never meant for this to happen. I will fix it, I swear. I'll make it right. But I could not listen anymore. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked out of the room. I needed space, needed to think. I locked myself in our bedroom and cried until I had no tears left. The next day were a blur. I called in sick to work, unable to face anyone. Robert and I barely spoke. He slept on the couch while I tried to figure out what to do next. I spent hours poring over our finances, trying to get a clear picture of how bad things really were. It was worse than I had imagined. Not only were our savings gone, but we were deep in debt. The mortgage was 3 months behind, and there were multiple maxed out credit cards I had not even known existed. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of numbers and despair. How could Robert have done this to us, to me? I alternated between fury at his betrayal and heartbreak at the thought of what he must have been going through to fall so deep into addiction. One afternoon, as I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by bills and bank statements, Robert approached me cautiously. Jessica, he said softly, can we talk? I looked up at him, seeing the pain and regret etched on his face. Part of me wanted to lash out, to make him feel as hurt and betrayed as I did. But another part recognized that he was suffering too. Okay, I said, gesturing for him to sit down. He took a deep breath. I know saying sorry isn't enough. What I did, it is unforgivable. But I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I love you more than anything in this world, and I hate myself for what I've done to us. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, but it did not erase the pain. I love you too, Robert, but love is not enough right now. I don't know if I can trust you anymore. He nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. I understand. I will do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I have already investigated Gamblers Anonymous meetings in our area. I want to get help, Jessica. I want to be the man you deserve. It was a start, but I knew we had a long way to go. That's good, Robert, but we need more than that. We need professional help, both for your addiction and for our marriage, and we need to figure out how we're going to deal with this financial mess. You're right, he agreed. I'll make appointments with a therapist and a financial advisor. Whatever you think we need, I'll do it. For the first time in days, I felt a tiny flicker of hope. It was not much, but it was something to hold on to. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of appointments and difficult conversations. Robert started attending GA meetings 3 times a week and seeing a therapist specializing in addiction. I went with him to some of the meetings and was moved by the stories I heard. So many lives derailed by the insidious pull of gambling. It helped me understand a little better what Robert had been going through, though it did not erase the hurt and betrayal I felt. We also started seeing a marriage counselor together. Those sessions were often painful as we dug into the roots of our problems. It was not just about gambling. We discovered communication issues that had been there for years, buried under the surface of our happy life. Jessica, our counselor, Dr. Amelia Rodriguez, said during one session, I sense that you've been holding back some of your feelings. Can you tell Robert directly how his actions have affected you? I took a deep breath, turning to face my husband. Robert, When I found out about your gambling, it felt like my whole world collapsed, not just because of the money, but because of the lies. Every time you told me you were working late or that those withdrawals were for work expenses, each lie was like a knife in my heart. I've spent months questioning everything about our relationship, wondering what else might not be true. Robert's face crumbled, but Dr. Rodriguez encouraged him to listen without interruption. I continued, my voice shaking. I'm scared, Robert. Scared that we will never recover from this financially. Scared that you will relapse. Scared that I will never be able to trust you fully again. And I am angry too. Angry that you put us in this position. Angry that you didn't come to me for help sooner. When I finished, there were tears streaming down both our faces. Dr. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. Thank you for your honesty, Jessica. Robert, how do you respond to what Jessica has shared? Robert took a moment to compose himself before speaking. Jessica, hearing how much I've hurt you, it kills me. You are right to be scared and angry. I betrayed your trust in the worst way possible. I cannot change what I did, but I promise you I am committed to changing myself. I am working hard in therapy and at GA to understand why I turned to gambling and how to make sure I never do it again. I know it will take time, but I hope that someday you'll be able to trust me again. These sessions were exhausting, but they were also cathartic. Slowly, we were learning to communicate more openly and honestly. Meanwhile, we had to face the harsh reality of our financial situation. We met with a financial advisor who specialized in helping people recover from severe debt. Her name was Linda, and she did not sugarcoat things. I'm not going to lie to you, she said during our first meeting. This is a dire situation, but it's not hopeless if you're both committed to making changes. She helped us create a strict budget and a plan to tackle our debts. We sold one of our cars and started using public transportation. We cut out all non-essential expenses. No more eating out, no vacations, no new clothes unless necessary. Every spare penny went towards paying off our debts. The hardest part was dealing with the mortgage company. Despite our best efforts, we could not catch up on the payments. Linda advised us to consider a short sale to avoid foreclosure. It's not ideal, she explained, but it's better for your credit in the long run than having a foreclosure on your record. The day we moved out of our house was one of the toughest of my life. As we packed up our belongings, memories flooded back. The day we moved in, full of hopes and dreams for our future, the countless dinners we had shared in the kitchen, the lazy Sunday mornings reading in the sunny living room. It felt like we were packing up more than just our possessions. We were packing up a whole life, a whole future we had imagined for ourselves. As Robert loaded the last box into the moving truck, I stood in the empty living room, tears streaming down my face. He came up behind me, tentatively putting his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Jessica, he said softly. This is all my fault. I turned to face him, seeing the guilt and pain in his eyes. In that moment, I realized something important. As angry and hurt as I was, I did not want Robert to carry this burden alone. We were in this together, for better or for worse. I took his hand in mine. It's not all your fault, Robert. Yes, your actions brought us here, but I should have pressed harder when I sensed something was wrong. We both need to learn from this. He squeezed my hand, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. We will, I promise you, Jessica, we'll get through this together. As we locked up the house for the last time and drove away, I felt a mix of sadness and determination. This was not the end of our story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. Our new apartment was small and in a less desirable neighborhood, but we were determined to make it work. We threw ourselves into creating a new budget and sticking to it religiously. Every small victory, paying off a credit card, putting a little into savings, felt huge. Through it all, Robert was true to his word. He threw himself into his recovery, never missing a meeting or therapy session. He was brutally honest about his struggles and worked hard to rebuild my trust. There were difficult moments, times when the stress of our situation made us snap at each other, nights when I lay awake wondering if we would ever recover from this. But there were good moments too. As we stripped our life down to the essentials, we found ourselves spending more quality time together. We would take long walks in the park, talking about our hopes and fears. We rediscovered board games and spent evenings playing, laughing like we had not in years. Slowly, painfully, we reconnected. One evening, about 4 months into our new life, Robert came home from a GA meeting looking thoughtful. "Everything okay?" I asked, sensing something was on his mind. He nodded, sitting down next to me on our second-hand couch. "Yeah, it's just something came up in the meeting today that I wanted to talk to you about." I felt a flutter of anxiety. "What is it?" "We were talking about making amends," he explained. "It's an important part of recovery, and I realize I never properly apologized to your parents for what I've put you through." I had not expected that. My parents had been supportive when I told them about our situation, but I knew they were deeply disappointed in Robert. They had always treated him like a son, and his actions had hurt them too. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" I asked cautiously. He nodded firmly. "I think we need to do this. For them, for you, and for myself. Would you be okay with me reaching out to them?" I thought about it for a moment, then agreed. "I think it's a good idea. Do you want me to be there when you talk to them?" "If you're willing, I'd appreciate that," he said, looking relieved. The conversation with my parents was difficult but necessary. Robert, from the heart, apologizing for his actions and explaining the steps he was taking to make things right. My parents were understandably wary, but I could see they appreciated his honesty. "We're disappointed in what happened," my dad said, "but we're proud of how you're handling it now. Both of you," he added, looking at me. "You're facing this together, and that's what matters." It was not instant forgiveness, but it was a start. As we left my parents' house that day, I felt like another small piece of our life had clicked back into place. About 6 months into our recovery journey, we hit a major milestone. Robert had been gambling free for half a year, and we had managed to pay off 2 of our smaller debts. It was not much in the grand scheme of things, but it felt like a huge victory. "I'm proud of you, Robert," I said, squeezing his hand. "I know this hasn't been easy." He looked at me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm proud of us, Jessica. I could not have done any of this without you. I'm so sorry for what I put you through, and I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling a complex mix of emotions. There was still hurt there, still fear about the future, but there was love too, stronger than ever. "We're going to be okay," I said, and for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. As we approached the 1-year mark of Robert's recovery, we faced another challenge. The company Robert worked for was downsizing, and his position was being eliminated. It was a blow we did not need, especially since we were still working on rebuilding our finances. The night he got the news, Robert came home looking defeated. "I'm so sorry, Jessica," he said, collapsing onto the couch, just when things were starting to look up. I sat next to him, taking his hand. "Hey, look at me," I said firmly. "This is just a setback. We have been through worse, remember? We'll figure this out too." He managed a small smile. "How did I get so lucky to have you?" "We're lucky to have each other," I corrected him. "Now let's think about this logically. What are our options?" "I've been thinking about this for a while," he told me, his eyes lighting up with an excitement I had not seen in ages. "I want to use my experience to help others. I'm going to train to become an addiction counselor." I was stunned, but impressed by his determination. It would mean more financial strain in the short term as he went back to school, but I could see how passionate he was about the idea. "If that's what you want to do, I will support you," I said. "We'll figure it out together." And we did. I picked up extra tutoring work in the evenings and weekends. Robert found a part-time job as a barista to help cover his tuition costs. It was not easy, but watching Robert throw himself into his studies with such enthusiasm made it all worthwhile. There were times when the stress got to us. One night after a particularly long day, I came home to find that Robert had forgotten to pay the electric bill and our power had been shut off. "How could you forget?" I snapped, my frustration boiling over. "We can't afford mistakes like this, Robert." "I'm sorry," he said, looking stricken. "I've just been so focused on my midterms, it slipped my mind. I'll fix it first thing in the morning, I promise." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. "I know you will. I'm so sorry for yelling. It's just sometimes it feels like we're barely keeping our heads above water." Robert pulled me into a hug. "I know, but look how far we have come, Jessica. A year ago we drowned. Now we are swimming. It's hard, but we're doing it. Our financial situation slowly improved. We stuck to our strict budget, and bit by bit our debts decreased. We even started a small savings account again, though we both agreed to keep it modest. The memory of how quickly money could disappear was still too fresh." One Saturday morning, as we sat drinking coffee and planning our week, Robert reached across the table and took my hand. "Jessica," he said, his voice serious, "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through. I know I can never fully make up for the pain I caused you, but I want you to know how grateful I am for your love and support. You could have walked away and no one would have blamed you, but you stayed and fought for us. You're the strongest person I know." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "We fought for us together, Robert. Yes, what you did was terrible and it hurt me deeply, but I have seen how hard you have worked to change, to make things right. We're a team and we're stronger together." He smiled, squeezing my hand. "We are, and I was wondering, would you be willing to renew our vows? I want to make new promises to you, promises I intend to keep for the rest of our lives." I was surprised but touched by the suggestion. "I'd like that," I said softly, "a fresh start." We planned a small ceremony in the park where we would have our picnic celebration, just us, an officiant, and a handful of close friends and family who had supported us through our struggles. As we stood facing each other, repeating our vows with new meaning and depth, I felt a sense of peace I had not experienced in years. "You know," I said to Robert one night, "if someone had told me 2 years ago that your gambling addiction would end up making our marriage stronger, I would have thought they were crazy. But in a weird way, it did." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "It forced us to face some hard truths and make real changes. I'm not glad it happened, but I'm grateful for where we are now." I leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Me too, and I am excited to see what is ahead. Who knows, maybe in a few years, when we're more stable, we can revisit the idea of starting a family." Commentary. Love is a powerful thing, and in this case, it looks like love conquered all. If you were in Jessica's shoes, would you stick around? That's a lot for a relationship to go through, and I'm amazed at some people's determination to make things work. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.